I'm quilting my ABC 123 quilt. I think this is my third one. And I am using Bree fabrics, which I absolutely love. I've used them before, I'll use them again. I'm going to start with the strip. Now, in these quilts, I use a stencil in the long strip, and I use templates, quilting with rulers, in the piece strips. So what I've done on the long strips of solid fabric, unpieced fabric, whole cloth fabric, is I draw a line down the center to let me know where the center of this strip is. And then I am taking my geometric swirls quilt stencil from Full Line Stencils, and I am putting that on the center line. And I am spacing it so that there's one in the center of each block. And I've only done about 4 here. I don't want to do all of them because the chalk does rub away, so I will be adding more as I go. Let me get my Batt Scooters. With the Batt Scooters, I like to put the small one on the inside of my machine. I have 10 inches in here, but there's still a limited space, and I put my larger one on the outside of the machine. I am using a green 2D variegated thread, and the reason I chose this thread is because I have a lot of spools of it. And then there's one more in the machine. That's the reason I picked this thread. I'm very excited. I love finishing spools of thread, so I will finish this one when I'm off camera. I didn't want to run them out when I'm quilting for you. But that's, sometimes you pick thread for weird reasons. And I am using a Deco Bob moss green bobbin. Now, it doesn't look like it matches very well when you look at the colors next to each other like this, but this is such a fine thread, This is such a thin thread that it matches really well on the quilt. If there's a little pull through, you won't see it, and it makes a beautiful stitch on the back. So I basted across the top of my quilt to get started. Let me trim my tails, just because they annoy me. Now this stencil is great because it has all these corners, and that means I only have to stitch one line at a time. So I'm going to push my foot pedal down all the way to the ground. I have, or the floor. I have my machine set at a little higher than a medium speed, and I'm going to press my foot down, and then I'm going to move my hands. And then I can pause there or stop there, and I'm going to now stitch over to the left. And when I hit a corner, I can pause, take a couple extra stitches, and that will keep my bobbin thread from pulling up through the top if I go in and out really quickly. Makes And it's good to take your foot off the pedal every once in a while to reposition your hands or to breathe if you're a breath holder. I sometimes do that myself. I catch myself holding my breath while I'm quilting. So I'm going to continue doing this on every square spiral all the way down the quilt. My stitching is not perfect. The intention is for it to not be perfect because it is free motion. The lines, you can barely see them now, but they will go away. So no one's going to compare my stitching to the line and say, ooh, you missed it. So they're just going to go, wow, you're amazing. And I'm going to go, I know, right? This is a great way to spend the afternoon. I put a book on in my ears, you know, in my headphones or whatever, and just quilt the afternoon away. I've finished my entire strip of square spirals, and this strip is done, or could be done. I'm of the belief that whoever puts the most thread on their quilt wins, so I want to add some quilting in the background here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stitch halfway down here, free motion, and then stitch into this hole and back out, and down and in and out and back out. And it'll just fill the space a little bit better. So I didn't stitch all the way in here. I left some space, and it's just enhancing the stencil that's already on the quilt. I finished all the quilting on the one side of the stencil, and I'm going to do the same thing on the other side. Obviously, it's completely optional, but I'm a more quilting is better type of quilter. I finished quilting the background quilting on this row, and I'm going to continue on each column going toward the right side because I like to work my way out of the quilt. Once I get to the outside edge of the quilt, I'm going to rotate my quilt 180 degrees. Start in the one closest to the middle and repeat going on the way out. However, whenever I'm working with that stencil, I need to make sure I'm marking it in the same direction as I did on the other half of the quilt. I'll just be quilting it upside down. So I'll be coming in from a line on the bottom and then to the middle and then working my way out and down to the next one. I'm ready to quilt my charm squares, and as I've done on my other ABC 123 quilts, I have used a ruler or a template. Now, if you're going to use rulers or templates on your home sewing machine, please check with your manufacturer to see what the correct foot is for the machine and the correct ruler size. There are different heights of rulers for home sewing machines, so if you use a ruler that is too tall or too short for your machine, you can damage your machine. So please check that with your manufacturer before you start quilting with rulers. What I want to do is I want to quilt a swirl. And I had trouble marking the line on here because the blue didn't show up on some, the white didn't show up on some, and neither some of the blocks, and neither showed up on some of them. So I took a piece of my 1/4 inch quilting tape, and the left side of the line is the center line down the middle of this charm square strip. The tool I'm going to be using for this is Handi Quilter's multi-clamshell tool. It's a 1/4 inch thick, which matches what matches the foot from my machine. This all works together beautifully. I'm using a 4 inch, a 3 inch, a 2 inch, and a 1.5 inch half circle. So it doesn't have to be this tool. You can use other size circles. But what I'm going to do is quilt a swirl along this center line. And I'm going to start with a 4 inch half circle, then a 3 inch half circle, then a 2 inch half circle, 1.5, and then come back out with a 2, 3, 4, and that is going to take me the entire top to bottom of my block so that I can just repeat it on the next one, and the next one, and the next one. Using the tape is not my #1 choice for marking this because I am going to have to go back and peel off every section on every block that I stitch, and there are 80 blocks in this quilt. So 80 blocks, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 pieces of tape per block. That's going to be a little bit nasty, but it's going to work. So when I quilt with a ruler on a home sewing machine, I have Handi Grip on the back. And this is a gripping product that helps it so that I can use this in one hand to help move my fabric instead of using my Batt Scooter or whatever else I'm using. If I don't have any grip on my ruler, the ruler is just going to slide across. Here it's going to actually stay with the fabric and push the fabric. Each of my half circles has a line where the half circle ends, and I'm going to place that line on the left side of my tape here. So now I'm ready to stitch a 4 inch half circle. And now I'm going to continue around with a 3 inch half circle, starting right where the last half circle ended, and I'm lining the line of my circle, my half circle template, with the left side of the tape. I now have a 2. Just continue on with what I'm doing. and then my 1.5. Now I'm going to reverse that, and so I've gone, make this a C, make this a D. I've gone D, C, D, C, and now I'm going to repeat with a C, D, C. So the 2-inch half circle goes right on top. And I can see the stitching from the previous 1.5-inch circle, but remember the foot is a 1/4 inch away from the needle, and it's going to push your needle a 1/4 inch away from where you're stitching, so it will work. Your needle a 1/4 inch away from the template. So there was my 2. Move to a 3. And then a 4. And you can see here that when I stitch along here, along the outside, the C curve, my seam is going to be a 1/4 inch away from the template, which is where I want my needle to end. So I'm in good shape. When I quilt, I keep both of my Batt Scooters on the quilt top, because if my right hand is on the ruler, I want my left hand on the Batt Scooter, and if my left hand's on the ruler, I want my right hand. I'm not quilting this with my left hand because I'm going to have to quilt that C on the outside, so I change to whatever helps me quilt easily. So there's my first spiral. I'm ready for my second. I've done this with 12, 11, 10, 9, 8, 7, 6. I've done this with very different size circles. So you can do a spiral just going in and not coming back out, or you can do in and out with different sizes. Play around with it to see what you like best and what works on your quilt. This works on this quilt beautifully. That's the 4. Three. 2 and 1.5. And I'm going to change direction, so I'm going to do a C on top of a C. 2. 3 and 4. I'm going to continue making these all the way down the quilt, one in each block. I finished stitching all of my spirals, and I'm going to continue that on row after row until I'm at the edge of the quilt. And at that point, I'm going to reverse the quilt and rotate it 180 degrees. And when I do that, I am actually going to have to stitch the swirls backwards. So instead of going 4, 3, 2, 1.5, 2, 3, 4, I'm going to go 4, 3, 2, reverse, 1.5, 2, 3, 4. So you can consider that whenever you are rotating your quilt. If it's a directional pattern, you may have to stitch it backwards, but it's still completely possible to only have half of your quilt at most inside the opening of your machine.